What I'm introducing right now is the concept of elimination. We use elimination to solve systems of equations. Now, elimination is exactly how it sounds. Instead of eliminating an individual or eliminating an obstacle, meaning to take care of it, get rid of it, explode it, kind of like kittens, dogs, rats, mice, fudgesicles in the microwave, whatever, we're actually going to eliminate variables in my system of equations. So instead of having to deal with two variables, x and y, I'm going to eliminate one of them. Now, the only way that I can eliminate them mathematically, instead of erasing it, I have to add them so that they become 0. All right? If I look here at this first system of equations, it's really apparent. If I add -4 and +4, well, that's 0. That's easy. Well, if I do it to one piece, I have to do it to all the others. So I'm going to add -2y and +8y. That gives me +6y. -12 and -24, that is -36. If I make a mistake in any of these videos, you can come after me with a torch and pitchfork later. I'll try to remake them along the way. 6y equals -36. I didn't have to write this piece because that's 0. 0 plus anything just leaves at anything. It doesn't affect it in any way. So now I need to get y by itself, so I'm going to divide both of my sides of my equation by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. That leaves me y times 1, which is just y. -36 divided by 6, that's -6. And again, that is only half of my solution. I need to figure out what x is. So we're going to substitute this value of y into one of these two equations. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to pick the bottom one because there are less negative numbers. I don't really like negative numbers. It's just my preference. So 4x plus 8 and substitution, because instead of y, I'm going to write -6. So instead of y, I'm going to write -6. Equals -24, just like the equation says. Now I'm going to simplify it. 4x, that's -48. -48. Notice I dropped the plus sign. That's okay, because it's -48. Adding a negative is the same as subtracting a positive. All right? Okay. Simplify, or solving for x. Add 48 to both sides of my equation. That leaves me 4x. This becomes 0. -24 plus 48 is 24. Divide both sides by 4, and you're left with x equals 6. That's beautiful. The real way to write this solution would be x equals 6, y equals -6. Okay, remember x before y, just like the alphabet. Okay, so that one was pretty easy. It was very apparent. I could just add them. That eliminates down to 0. Now, the second equation is a little bit more, it steps it up a bit, for sure. So, if I add 8 and -3, I would get +5. So that does not become 0 so easily. Alright, so let's move on. If I add a positive y to a positive y, now some of you might be thinking, there's no number in front of that y. What am I going to do? I got no idea. That just makes me confused. Remember, if you see a variable by itself, you can always assume there is a 1 as its coefficient. Because 1 times y is just y. So let's assume that for both of these. I have a +1 and a +1 right there. That would get me +2 if I add it together. Well, that doesn't quite work out so well. So instead, we can do some manipulation. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to choose, I don't know, top, bottom. It doesn't matter. I can choose the top equation or the bottom equation for this next step. I'm going to choose the bottom equation. Okay? If I multiply that bottom equation by one number so that it changes this number right here. Okay? Because the idea is I want to add these together to get 0. What could I change this to so that when I add those I would get 0? Well, 1 plus negative 1 equals 0. And that's true for all opposite numbers. 6 or negative 6 plus 6, that equals 0. Or 5 plus negative 5, that equals 0. And you can do it for any pair of numbers. If you add a number and its opposite, you'll always get 0. So I want to make that negative 1. And the only way to do that is to multiply the whole equation by negative 1. So I'm going to erase this. I hope you have that idea down. So that's what I'm looking for. I need a number and its opposite. So we're going to make that its opposite. So I'm going to rewrite this equation. Negative 1 times negative 3, that's positive 3x. Negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1y. I write the 1 there so you can see it. If you don't write it, it's still there, okay? But you write it as long as it helps you. Negative 1 times negative 5, that's a positive 5. Now that I have changed that equation, let's rewrite that top one. Let's rewrite the second equation right here and see how it compares. Okay? I have negative 1, I have positive 1. I know that's going to be 0 when I add them together. So let's do it. 3 plus 8 is 11x. Negative 1 plus positive 1 is 0y. And then 5 plus negative 16 is negative 11. Brilliant. It has worked out great. We have our eliminated variable. I'm excited. Let's go on. So this is 11x equals negative 11. We're going to divide both sides by 11. In order to get x by itself, I get x equals negative 1. Boom! I have half the answer. I have to substitute that into either of these two equations to get what y equals. I will not go through that process here. It is the same process here where I just substituted it in and solved for my y variable. Okay? So I'm going to move on to this one to keep this video a little shorter. Now, if you look at this equation here, 2 plus 3, that equals 5. That's not 0. That's not what we're looking for. Negative 10, because I'm going to count for that subtraction sign. Negative 10 plus 5 gives me negative 5. Well, that doesn't work either. Well, I need to change something so that if I add these, I will get 0. The easiest thing that I see, if I multiply 5 times 2, I would get 10. That means positive 10 and negative 10. So when I add that, I would get 0. I could multiply this times 2 and get 6, and multiply this times 3 and get 6 as well. But then I'd have to make sure one of them's opposite, so I'd have to multiply this by negative 2 or this times negative 3. This just becomes a big mess. Alright, so I try to look for the easiest way possible. If there is no easy way, then you can multiply both equations by something in order to make that happen. Alright, so let's go for it. We're going to multiply this second equation by 2. Alright, because 2 times 5 is positive 10. And I need a positive 10 in order to eliminate that variable. Okay? It's a coincidence that these two equations on the bottom were the ones manipulated or multiplied by a number. I could have done the top, so either way is okay. So I'm going to rewrite this bottom equation and multiply it by 6. Sorry for the bell, I'm still at school. 2 times 3 is 6x. 2 times 5 is 10y. 2 times 7 is 14. I have that equation, that's fine. If you want to, put a line through it so you know that you've already rewritten it. Rewrite the second equation, 2x minus 10y equals 8. Add them to combine them. That's 8x. 6 plus 2 is 8. 10 minus 10, or positive 10, negative 10. That gets me 0y. And then 14 plus 8 is 22. Okay? Now you can solve it just like we did here. So we have 8x plus 0, which is just 8x, equals 22. And then divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, times x is x. 22 divided by 8, well, that's actually 11/4, and I'm going to leave it as a simplified fraction. And again, I'm not going to substitute this back into one of these equations just because of time. But please do so to find the other half of your answer and solution. So this is the process of elimination. Watch this as many times as you need to try to get the hang of it. If you still can't get the hang of it, please come see me in class. I'd be happy to help you out, okay?